Hello and welcome to part 2 of me trying out 3 art programs. This is also the last part because there's a limited number of free software and I don't want to stretch it out and put in, Microsoft Paint and waste your time. So let's jump right into it. The first program we're testing out today is FireAlpaca, and right away I noticed that the UI was very similar to Medibang, so I had to check if it was made by the same people, and it was, or they had a partnership or something. It's kind of confusing, but let's see if it works similarly. Again, there's not a lot of brushes, but definitely more than in Medibang, plus some pattern brushes, and the brush preview is just for the active brush, like in Medibang, which again, I am not a fan of. And speaking of brushes, as I said, there was more to choose from, but I didn't find any that would do nicely for rendering. But I settled for a watercolor brush, but it didn't really blend too well. FireAlpaca also doesn't have a time-lapse recording tool or saving your files to cloud. Also, from what I read, it doesn't necessarily work with all drawing tablets, so before getting it, you might just wanna check if yours will work with it. Otherwise, it felt pretty similar to Medibang, honestly. I can't say anything else besides it, but if you use this software and know more about it, specifically the differences between the two, please let me know in the comments. From things that FireAlpaca has and Medibang doesn't, there is a animation tool, but I haven't tried it. I wanted to focus only on the drawing aspect. Anyway, I can give it 3 out of 5 because there is a fewer things than in Medibang. The next software is Artweaver. I think this is a less known program, or at least less used. But let's give it a try anyway, maybe we'll find a hidden gem or something. It does have a paid version that costs 34 euros, but we will be only looking at the free version. So my first observation is that it has a lot of brushes, which positively surprised me after seeing how scarce was the brush selection in the programs we've tested before. Granted, some of the brushes will be similar to one another, but at least most people should find one that fits them. Except one thing, it doesn't seem to have a simple hard round brush. The closest one I found was a calligraphy brush, and after editing it a bit, it was kind of similar, but it still has some texture to it. I also don't really like this menu. It's cool that it's divided in categories, but I prefer being able to switch between brushes with one click. But it turns out that brush stroke smoothing is only available in the paid version, which makes the strokes clumsy, especially if you don't have a screen tablet. You also can't use lasso tool and transform the selection. You have to copy the layer and paste it onto a new one. I also thought you can't merge the layers, but you can. It just works differently than other programs. You pick a layer that's above your target layer and then hit merge down, which is the usual Ctrl+E. But not being able to pick multiple layers at once is a problem on its own. Like, what if I want to move everything up a bit? And you can't move the canvas freely either. So if you're zoomed in, you can only move it to the edges of the canvas, and if you're zoomed out, you can't move it around at all. I suppose it's a bit nitpicky, but I just have an area of my tablet that feels the most comfortable to draw. So not being able to do that feels awkward. Bucket tool only works on a whole canvas or on a selection. It does not recognize brush strokes that were made on a different layer. And there's no color editing, like you can't pull up a window and tweak hue or saturation, etc. with sliders. I also don't believe there's clipping masks even in the paid version, which to me is not acceptable. The brushes, despite not having the smoothing, work fine. It was a little bit awkward, but I'm sure you have to get used to it. But in general, they were alright. In conclusion, I didn't like working with this program, and while Medibang and FireAlpaca were light versions of art softwares, this one is just lacking in basic functions. That being said, I still didn't fight it as much as GIMP, so it gets a generous rating of 2.5 out of 5. The last program I wanted to test is MyPaint, and I am really sorry, but it seems to have decided to use my computer's language, and I can't find a way to change it, so it will be in Polish. But anyway, the first thing I noticed is that you don't pick a canvas and resolution size, you just start with a canvas that's really big. And it starts with a background that looks like actual canvas, but you can change that. I had troubles with my tablet and my mouse actually, similar to ones that I had in GIMP. Except here, when I use my tablet, then my mouse wouldn't work at all. And my tablet and pen buttons also didn't work, so I can't even use right mouse click. And I checked, and MyPaint actually recognizes my tablet, so I don't know why that happens. I was curious about how it saves the files, and it recognizes what you drew and only considers that area. But then I also found out that you can set a frame and then you can pick the shape of your canvas, except I'm not sure if you can check the size of this area that you pick, which to me is a big downside if you want a specific size or ratio of your canvas. I think the worst thing, not just in MyPaint, but in general, is that it doesn't have a transform tool. I couldn't believe it, but I found a topic from 2014 asking for a selection tool, and it's still not available. The undo tool is weird. I can't really figure out how it works, as in it doesn't always undo one brush stroke but multiple. But I think it considers not brush strokes but time between the strokes, so if I make 2 strokes fast enough, it will undo both at once. And you can't pull up a window to change hue or saturation or whatever as well. But there is at least a set of sliders that help you with that. But still, if you wanted to tweak a layer's colors a bit, that wouldn't be possible. From positive things, I can say that the fill tool is decent and it lets you adjust it how you need it. And also, it took me a while to find it, but there is a brush smoothing tool, which I didn't expect at all after there was no transform tool. I also thought it didn't have alpha lock or clipping masks. Turns out it does. It's just really well hidden, and actually figuring out how it works took me a while. You need to create a group and set the topmost layer to destination at top, and then if you draw on a layer below it, the first one will act like a mask. That being said, when I was rendering, I wanted to quit. I wanted to leave this painting alone, unfinished, and never look back at it. And I thought drawing this took me several hours more than the other ones because I just kept wanting to be done. But then I checked and I really didn't draw it so much longer than all the other ones. Okay, let's wrap this up. I feel like if it gets a couple necessary things, it might be decent, but right now, as it is, I can only give it 2.5. So that's it for today's video. Krita, the first program I tried out, was the best, at least to me. I really hope I helped some of you with picking an art program that you will enjoy. And if you use and like a software that I didn't like, let me know in the comments and tell me why you think I'm wrong. Anyway, I will see you in the next one. Bye!